Nice to be with you, Neil.
So, Secretary, what do you make of this and the fact that now the French are working in concert with the Russians on responding to ISIS? What has changed that tone? Because obviously the Russians, no stranger to this, they have indicated as unequivocally as they can that what brought down that passenger jet a couple of weeks ago was in fact a bomb, so it was in fact terror. But is that what's changing it, or the fact that terror is uniting us?
Neil, we've just witnessed acts of war by ISIS conducted against Paris with this vicious attack that they conducted there. It was the equivalent of their 9/11. And the Russians have experienced an act of war as well, with ISIS bringing down a Russian airliner. I think this is an opportunity. I really do, to unite the civilized world against the barbarism of ISIS. But that's going to take strong leadership. I think that it's important that NATO take the step of invoking Article 5. They did that when 9/11 hit this country. I think they should do it with the attack in Paris. I do think it's an opportunity to try to bring together the nations of Europe and NATO and our Arab colleagues in the Middle East together into one fight against ISIS. And whether Russia wants to be part of that, I think remains to be determined. I think they can bring a lot to the table. But this is a time when the world needs to unify against ISIS.
Now, Article 5 would commit those nations who sign on to it to militarily get involved here at its core, right?
Well, you know, NATO represents, obviously, the security of Europe. Europe is clearly a target for ISIS. We've just seen one of those countries, France, being attacked by ISIS. I think it's important that that they join this fight against ISIS. They can bring tremendous capabilities. When we went to war in Libya, we had over 50 nations that were part of that coalition. We had a joint command center at Naples that basically coordinated air attacks. It coordinated ground operations as well, and was very effective. I think that's the kind of model that we ought to be using today.
How do you think the President's responding to this?
I think the President obviously reflects tremendous concern about what took place in Paris. I think he understands that ISIS is a threat. He's actually defined the right mission, which is to degrade, dismantle, and defeat ISIS. That is the fundamental mission. It isn't about containment. It is about defeating ISIS. And I think if there's anything that we ought to understand from these last events, it's that we have to go to war against this brutal enemy.
Do you hear that out of the President, though? Because, you know, the likes of Lindsey Graham and John McCain and others have been saying he does not seem to have the will for the fight or show the will for the fight, and that he seems to be urging patience with the battle plan already in place against ISIS. Do you agree with that?
Well, look, Neil, you know, one thing I've been concerned about in this country, and I realize this is the political season, you know, there's just an awful lot of divisions in this country right now. And when you're confronting an enemy like ISIS, I think we do have to come together. You know, the President is the Commander-in-Chief. And I believe that it is very important for the President of the United States now to take leadership, have the United States exercise greater leadership here to bring the world together. I think that it is important not to just think that this is about putting 140,000 troops, U.S. troops on the ground. That isn't the choice. Nobody supports that. But I do think at the same time that we have a responsibility to increase our effort in that part of the world, increase our intelligence presence, increase our special forces presence there as well, and work with other countries in the region and work with NATO to be able to go to war.
Increase your special forces presence beyond what the President has already committed to?
I believe we do need to increase our special forces presence both in Syria as well as in Iraq.
Because he has not said that, sir. He has not said that. He has drawn the line on that.
I'm not sure that he hasn't left that opportunity open. I do think that the military understands that right now the best way to deal with this is to have additional special forces that can work with other countries, work with the ground forces of other countries, to be able to identify targets, to conduct the kind of air attacks. I mean, air attacks are great, but at the same time, if you don't have good targets on the ground, it doesn't do much in terms of destabilizing the enemy. So we've got to identify better targets on the ground, and we do need to have special forces that can better coordinate ground operations. Ground operations by the Kurds, ground operations by the Sunnis. This is a war, and we're going to have to unify under one command to conduct this war.
Secretary